This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. We're a show that works to inspire and empower women in every profession and lifestyle, including the office, trucking, the trades, and even motherhood. We power women on their road to success. We tackle all kinds of topics, and we work to encourage women to be their very best with informative guests and women who've been champions. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
No topic is taboo on our rig. We tackle the tough topics along with the not so tough topics. And we like to feature experts and celebrities who can assist women in being the very best they can be. We live in a digital world where we can reach more people now than ever before. In less than 20 years, we've become a global society of electronic devices where we tweet, text, post, and communicate on social media. The problem is, humankind is actually more disconnected now than we've ever been. A recent report says loneliness is the #1 health issue confronting all of us. Amy Daughters works to revitalize human connections in spite of all of this. She believes in rekindling the age-old art of handwritten letters in your personal and your work life. She's a keynote speaker, letter writer, satirist, sports journalist, and she's the author of Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter, as well as the book You Cannot Mess This Up, a true story that never happened. Dana is absolutely convinced that when human beings connect individually in a meaningful way, nothing can separate them. And we really admire what Amy's doing. Handwritten notes and letters seem to be a long-lost art, and many schools today have even abandoned teaching cursive. And if anyone's ever gone through family archives, you'll see notes that have been saved as family heirlooms. They're actually historical documents and a way to peer into the lives of the people who wrote them. We have Amy with us today to talk about all of this and what she's doing to reconnect people. You know, Amy, this is so cool. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you, Shelley and Kathy. I am thrilled to be with you today.
You know, there are age groups that have no idea what handwritten notes are all about. It almost seems like a foreign language. I remember seeing a meme on social media probably 6 months ago that said, if we want to speak secretly and confuse Gen Zennials, all we have to do is write in cursive and show them an analog clock.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it seems like we would be progressing forward with all these digital devices. We can talk to people in a nanosecond anywhere in the world. But even before we got all these electronic devices and got so connected, handwritten letters seem to start waning.
Correct. Yes. I know for me, I grew up in a generation where, I wrote from summer camp to my parents and my brothers and sisters. I wrote to my grandparents when I went to college. And then somewhere right before email really broke through, it seemed like, that the entire practice of letter writing, as you said, started to dwindle and not become a part of the fabric of our, communication culture.
Yeah, I must say I'm kind of guilty. I kind of got away from writing the notes and that sort of thing. I know when I was a kid, if I got anything for Christmas or my birthday, it was expected that I sit down and write a thank you note before I even played with whatever it was for any length of time.
Absolutely. And that's an important point, I think, because my mom did the same thing. We had the thank you notes, and we saw them come out, we were like, oh no. But that established that practice of, not only being thankful, but doing it, and there be an active effort put into that. And that's exactly what letter writing is it requires personal effort. But but that's reflected in the recipient, especially in 2023. When I went on my letter writing journey that I did not expect to go on, I hadn't written a letter in probably 3 decades. And over again, I was blown away at what it meant to people to receive a letter, in the new millennium.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think a lot of people know how to do it. And it seems like this has kind of evolved, I want to say, within the past 30 years anyway. people started just kind of handing out notes at Christmas time with the Christmas card.
Right.
And a lot of times the notes started to be typed instead of handwritten.
Right. No, and pre-printed cards or, the Christmas newsletter. But you're exactly right, Shelley. I think the Christmas card, which I don't know about you and Kathy, but it seems like every year you receive, I don't know, 5 or 10 less.
Oh, yeah.
Are you supposed to do the
Barely
list?
anymore.
Yeah. But it's the final bastion of an actual, what we would consider a handwritten note or letter. It's kind of the last man standing.
Well, I know I get a lot of Christmas cards on Facebook and that kind of thing, but if you were to look at my
Not the
wall at
same.
Christmas,
Not
yeah,
the same.
if you look at my wall at Christmas time in the house, it looks like I have 0 friends.
Yeah.
No, and you feel that way. I mean, when
Yeah.
we spent all those years going to the mailbox, and you're excited because you knew that one girl right after Thanksgiving was going to send the card right away. She was the early. For me, that was a girl named Missy. She always sent the first Christmas card of the season. Then there was Lee. You expected her, but then you do feel, and it goes back to the isolation you're talking about, because we're no longer being treated as individuals. So you do feel like, wait a second, where'd everybody go? Even though they're all on Facebook or Instagram or whatever your medium of choices, they're still out there. But the thing is, we're not having that one-on-one connection, because that one-on-one connection reminds us that we matter enough to someone for them to take that effort to write the thank you note, to write the birthday card, to write the letter, to write the Christmas card.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we gave up something. Now, I will never not say, and I think we can all agree that, electronic instantaneous communication absolutely has a place in our world, a valuable place that's transformed the way we do business and communicate. But we've given up something that I don't think we're even aware that we gave up, that we sacrificed in the age of, instantaneous communication.
Yeah.
I'm that person that always sends Christmas cards. And when I send the Christmas card, I'll also put a note. And if I can, I'll throw a picture in there.
Right.
But so when I receive the very odd time from my one particular aunt who always sends me a card, I am tickled pink. I'm like, oh my God, I got a Christmas card. Right?
Yeah.
No, and
that little thing that it makes a difference. The Facebook stuff, it just doesn't count.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah. And I went on this letter writing journey. I found a friend on Facebook that her name was Dana, hence the title of my book. Hadn't talked to her in 30 years. Her name popped in my head one day. I looked, oh, there she was. So I friended her. I didn't really have any huge lucid memories. I remembered we had big personalities together. And I found out right away that her son had cancer. He was at St. Jude in Memphis. I was like, I'll kind of follow along with this. And then when he relapsed, I was like, just out of nowhere, like a bolt of lightning, I was like, I'm going to start sending these 2 people letters. And I hadn't read a letter in 30 years. And so I start writing them. Her son, sadly, I mean, there's no good words for it, passes away at 15. I don't know what else to do. So I just keep writing her. She starts writing me back. And I spend 2 years writing this person letters. We had no communication outside of the mail for 2 whole years. And it just completely transformed the way I looked at everything. Because here I was sharing with this person, and think about it. I didn't know what her political stance was. I didn't know what kind of religious values she held. I didn't even know how she did life or how she treated people. But when we started sharing in the mail, we started trusting each other. She'd share about her grief. I'd start looking my life from the outside in. That's what you do when you write a letter. And it was so profound, Shelley and Kathy, that I sat back after about 8 months of this, and I was like, if this can be this life-changing, what about all these other Facebook people? And so, and I don't know how serious I was. I think I was a little bit bonkers. So I shoved everyone's name in a box. I made some stationery, and I started writing these letters to all these people. And it took me about 18 months, but I wrote almost 600 handwritten letters.
Wow.
And it blew up my life. And I'll tell you what, you said that, Kathy, like you get that Christmas card, that handwritten Christmas card from your aunt, and it just makes your whole day. I experienced that 600 times. I didn't hear from all 600 people, but over and over again, I didn't understand what this was going to do, the power this was going to unleash. But when you know you matter to someone, because people connect the dots. They're like, you know what she said. I told everybody in every letter I was writing everybody, and they're like, oh my God, you chose me. I was like, no, I chose everyone. But over and over again, people were like, she had to sit down with the pen and the paper. She had to write the stuff down. Then she had to find an envelope, an address, a stamp, a mailbox, a post office. And people were like, oh my God, I matter to another individual human being. And it unleashed this power that I had no idea. Not only do I have this power, everyone listening, Shelley and Kathy, we all have this power to absolutely just make someone's, not just their day, not just their week. I don't think there's any words for what kind of power we have just with a handwritten note, with 4 sentences, with 4 pages, whatever you can handle doing. It is off the chain what can happen.
It really is. And
yeah, I believe that. I'll tell you something. When I was younger, I had been in this kind of like a rehab place, and it was the very first time that I had gone to speak to a school, and I was like 19 or 20, something like that. Anyway, I was talking about suicide and about, my own personal trauma that had happened to me, and how that I had found hope, and that I was trying to, overcome all my issues. Well, oh my God. For the next year and a half, after I was done talking, let me backtrack. After I was done talking, I had a whole group of little young girls that were 13, 14, and they came up to me, and the young girl said, my dad hung himself in the garage last month, and I've been wanting to do the same, but after hearing, you talk, I decided that if there's something worth fighting for. That young girl wrote me handwritten letters, her and her little group of friends, for at least a year. And here's an even better one. And after that same talk, I received a letter from a lady who was driving, and randomly driving, and she saw this, there all this, speaking at the school. So she just randomly pulled in and decided to come into the gymnasium and listen. Well, son of a gun, her son had died from a drunk driver, her 18-year-old son, when he graduated, and he had died 2 years before, and she couldn't shake herself out of this depression. And she heard me talk, and then this woman wrote to me for at least a year, handwritten letters talking about her pain and about how she was thanking me because somehow in the dream state, I would meet her and I would bring her to help to these spiritual guides who would help her deal with her depression and her pain and her grief. And so she was writing to me to thank me. Well, let me tell you, those letters, I kept them for decades. And when I was struggling, I would reread these beautiful written letters, and I could feel them, because you can feel the words, you can feel the energy through the paper, right?
yeah.
And those letters was the most precious thing. And it is one of my, when I had the Great Escape in 2007, I lost those letters, and that was my biggest loss in life, was those 2 letters.
That's absolutely amazing, Kathy. And you speak, the energy that you felt in those letters. And I think that's really powerful. And then there's something about the handwriting, because it's something so intimate.
It's almost like you can hear them speaking, right?
Yep.
Right. It's a different voice. And we can remember our grandparents' handwriting, but they gave you a gift because they showed you a side of themselves that you don't show to anyone else. And then to, hold in your hand something that person who you impacted so deeply held in their hand, there's this intimacy to it that
really
is so powerful. And you spoke to that so beautifully.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. We've really given up something in the age of instantaneous communication. Even though we can reach around the world, not getting handwritten notes or holiday cards often makes people feel isolated. We've lost a real connection and the link that tells us we matter. Amy Daughters knows the value of handwritten notes and letters and how much it reignites the human connection that we've lost, both in our personal and our professional lives. She's really onto something here. She's the author of Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy and Wrote 580 of My Facebook Friends a Handwritten Letter. Amy's sought after for her insight about reigniting the human connection. And as Amy says, handwritten letters carry an intimacy and personal touch that nothing else does. They actually become something people treasure. You know, Amy, I remember going through the attic of my parents' home, and there was a pile of letters that my mother wrote to my dad. He'd kept them. They were love letters when they were dating. Never saw them before. And I was just amazed, peering into my mother's life and what she was thinking at the time, amazed at how beautiful her handwriting was and how precise and everything else. It was like going back in time and kind of sitting there. I could imagine my mother writing this, you know, and I kind of,
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
yeah, I got a perspective of her that she never talked about, you know?
Right.
And it,
Because we open up in a different way in a letter. And again, I just speak to that on experience.
Mhm.
You're a different, you share in a different way because you have time and you don't know when the other person, if you think about it, it's all very simple, but you don't know, she didn't know you were going to read the letters 40 years later, but even when she wrote them, she didn't know when your father was going to read them. And now we know, especially when there's a text that has a return receipt at the bottom, but you know an email went through or it would bounce back and say it didn't go through. But when you don't know, when you're just going to go drop it in the box somewhere, and then hope somebody reads it. That was what was so powerful between Dana and I, especially because I had no idea. So nobody feels like they have to respond. So you share in a much freer way and you have time to think about it and you can erase it. And then when you put it in the envelope, it's pretty much what you want to say and then you forget about it. And then you're like, well, did they read it or not? And it's so beautiful because it's the unknown. You just don't know. And you know, and you're giving someone a gift. I'll tell you what, all those letters, I think the most common response I got over and over again was, I am going to save your letter for the rest of my life.
yeah.
I didn't know I didn't know I had it in my wheelhouse, guys. I was just a normal hot skinny girl trying not to screw up my kids.
I've done that with Christmas cards and notes that I've gotten. I've saved them, certain ones and all of that,
Yeah.
and gone back and it's, you can't remember the year that you got it, but it makes you smile when you go back through. It's like, oh, that
Well,
was neat.
it's like my wall of love
Mhm.
that I had in my office before I sold my house for the last 3-4 years. In the whole one wall was this light blue, and every single piece of paper, note, thank you. I would print out screenshots of what students have said or people have, whatever it is, gifts that I've gotten. My entire wall was my wall of love, and it was my reminder of, you know what, I am making a difference. So Kathy, because it's from people from literally all over the world. And so I am making that difference. So you know what? Keep doing what you're doing. And the hardest part about selling my house was taking that wall down.
Yeah, I
What a,
bet.
I'm like, oh
what
man.
a treasure. Yeah, it makes me
Yeah.
want to create one,
I love it.
and
Oh, it's very powerful. It's, and when you put it up, you're putting it up with love, right?
Mhm.
Because it's all these little tidbits, these memories. I got postcards, I got gifts, I got, these happy pictures and people posting with, with my book or with or whatever, right?
right.
In
Mhm.
different countries. And it just reminded me that, my voice does matter, and to not quit because of maybe my itty bitty shitty committee in my own head is telling me, Kathy, stop it.
Right.
So I just remind myself, hey, keep doing what you're doing, woman.
Right. And those notes that people sent you, and then the notes that you sent to other people that are on someone else's
Yeah.
wall or in their box. But see, there it is again. Like, what do you say in the letter? And what I found myself doing, again, unintentionally, was like, what do I say in 2 pages to the girl I was in junior high school band with? I mean, what do I say? And you know what you end up saying is just what you're talking about, is you look at this person as an individual. So you step back and think, okay, what's the reality like? And then what what do they mean to me? And then you end up thinking, oh my God, I have so much I could say. You know, Kathy and I went to, let's say, Kathy, and you and I went to junior high school together, and my grandmother died. You walked me to the girls' bathroom and made sure I didn't lose my in front of the flutes section, And so
Yeah.
I'm like, Kathy, thank you so much for that. You made such a difference. And see, boom, that goes on somebody's wall. Or you remember that time we danced that girl's wedding and we both fell down in the toilet? I mean, funny stuff, and thanking people and congratulating people like, Shelly, I didn't know you were so successful until I went and really looked and saw who you were. Thank you for the ripple effect you're making in the world. I'm proud to be your friend. That's the kind of stuff I said. And
Mhm.
so, and then people said that stuff back to me. So, and I love Kathy, your wall. We were all filling each other's walls. That's what we
Yeah.
were doing. And we
Yeah.
have the power to put stuff on Kathy's
Yeah.
wall and Amy's wall and Shelly's wall with the handwritten note or with the letter. And it can be 2 sentences or it can be
On
16
napkins,
pages.
people writing me
Yeah.
on whatever, on a
Right.
piece of paper, on a piece of gum wrapper or whatever. Man, that's going on my wall. Right.
Sure.
Amen. And I
Yeah.
love you
And
said
then the whole thing
postcard.
was like, can I
Yeah.
make your wall of love? I'm like, man, you got to be pretty damn special to make Kathy's wall of love.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But we all have the ability to
Yeah.
put something on everyone else's wall of love. And that's the thing. And then it floods back, because, what you put out there. I mean, the person most changed from writing 600 Facebook friends a letter is me, because I realized, oh my God, I'm connected to all these incredible people who came into my life at the right time. And I got to say thank you. And I got to say, I love you. And I got to say, you matter. And that just blew up my whole entire heart. And I think the one of the biggest takeaways, it's never too late to fill someone's wall. I
I
could
love
have
it.
worked with Shelley 25 years ago. And if I wrote you a note right now, if you got a note, Shelley, in the mail tomorrow from somebody you worked with 25 years ago,
Mhm.
that would just make your world. And it's never
Yeah.
too late to say that we care, to say thank you, to say I'm sorry, to say I'm with you, I care about your struggles. It's never too late to get on the wall.
I love this. Yeah. It really does feel like we've lost that common thread that we used to acknowledge people with by handwritten notes and postcards and things like that.
Right. Exactly.
And rekindling that is so important. I remember as a child having a pen pal in Australia. It was so cool. And we wrote about, whatever little kids write about. And I got to peer into their lives. They got to peer into mine. And it felt like I have a friend thousands of miles away. It was hard for me to wrap around my head what the distance was, but the sense of humanity that you don't really get with a text or an email or anything like that.
No, and that sharing of the mundane, because when I look back at letters I wrote, when I was in high school and college, it's people sharing about the stuff you would share in an email or a phone call when it was long distance. And again, it's that intimacy, and then, the power of writing about your own life. But, getting to know somebody in that way is complete. I mean, it's so powerful. I mean, that's, Dana and I, are now best friends. She lives in Louisiana. I live in Texas. So we see each other every other month. We talk on the phone most days, but we still write each other 2 or 3 times a month because that's just how powerful it is. I hope it'll always be a part of our relationship because we share stuff in the mail that we don't share on the telephone or in person.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
You know, taking the time to write a note, a letter, or send a handwritten card really can make a person's day. It's so unusual to do, and it evokes such a powerful, positive reaction from the recipient. It has huge benefits for the letter writer, too. You're touching people in a way you can't with a text or a message. Plus, the letter writer opens up in a different way in a handwritten letter, showing more of their personality and sharing a piece of themselves. It's truly personal. It's a unique way to reach out today, not only because it just isn't done, but that person respects the time you took to write the letter, and they remember you because you made them feel like they matter. Too often today, people feel like they don't count in our world of impersonal, digital communication. Amy Daughters is a keynote speaker on this very topic, and she's on a mission to reconnect people in the more intimate and personal art of handwritten notes. You know, Amy, this is even powerful and works in business. If somebody's interviewing for a job, they can email a thank you note, but they make more of an impact if they send a thank you note.
Right. And that's perfectly, I'm sure y'all both see this in the mail you get in your mailboxes, but a lot of companies have spent a lot of money on software and hardware to make mail outs that look like they're handwritten notes, like they use real stamps just to say, because their stuff looks more important. I just did a podcast with a real estate group, and they were talking about that was the whole conversation, was how do we harness this, and they're doing an initiative called November, where they're challenging all the members of this group to write a handwritten note every month, every day in November. And it's a client-based initiative, but to connect with people, because it's just such a super powerful thing to do. Like you said, in business, it could be completely utilized without the software. It's a small time commitment, 15, 20 minutes a day, you can write 1 or 2 notes.
And it's a cathartic experience when you do it too, depending, maybe not so much for business, but when it's personal, you're actually taking the time, you're getting away from all of the hectic craziness to write something, to reconnect.
You know what shocks me? Well, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's just saying, what shocks me is that when I'm taking the time to write something, like you were just saying, in my books, when I give them out, I am astounded because all the younger crowd can't read the writing. What is up with that?
Oh, they don't teach cursive. Handwriting is something
what's up with that? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Like, you can't read cursive. Like, what?
Yeah, they don't. A lot of the Gen Zennials print. They don't. They have no idea how to read cursive.
Right.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind that they're not being taught that in school.
Mm-hmm.
That's another great audience for a letter. Again, I wasn't intentional in doing any of this, but when I was writing the letters, my oldest son was 16, 17. So inevitably, I was friends on Facebook with some of these younger people. And so they got a letter. And that was one of the most beautiful things, because they were like, Miss Amy, I've never gotten a letter. I've never gotten a letter. That's the first letter I've ever gotten. And it was so powerful that 7 or 8 years later, these kids are sending me invitations to their wedding, because they feel like, because of this letter, because they got it, or they'll send me a note, because it was so special to them, but that's a great audience. And I agree about the cursive. I mean, it's like you said at the top of the show, Shelley, we could use that as code and,
Yeah.
covertly, and we could have a rotary phone and really mess with people
Oh,
too. But,
yeah.
but I mean, there's another great audience where you can have such an impact on your children, on your grandchildren, on your nieces and nephews, on your neighbors by just writing them a handwritten note and say something you appreciate about them or something you noticed about them. They'll probably carry it for the rest of their lives.
And you know what's interesting about cursive? It really tells a lot about the person, the flourish that some people have, the larger handwriting, perhaps. I mean, it tells something about their personality. You can't see that so much in printing, and you certainly don't see it in anything that's typewritten.
Right. And the cursive is, I mean, those are, just such great words about that. And, even the printing, more so the cursive. And this is another thing that I found out about myself in the letter writing is that one of the great things, we're in this age where we can filter and we can filter our pictures, and we can do things in Word and fix all the misspellings. And even now with AI, we can, change our grammar and all that stuff. When you write somebody a letter, handwritten or cursive, they're going to see all your flaws, because you're not going to go start your letter back over when you're on page 2, because you're over it by that point. But you're going to know, if Kathy and Shelley all write each other, you're going to know, look, Kathy's not perfect. Shelley's not perfect. She had to cross out. I have horrible handwriting. My spelling's awful, but all my friends know that now. But how comforting it is to know that none of us are perfect. That's another message we all need to hear, especially as women. We are not perfect. It looks perfect, but it's not. But that's another thing handwriting does. It's like, whoops, she's not perfect. That's a hot mess, that whole letter,
and that's kind of interesting.
You know what I do at work? I'm the only one. Now you got to imagine we're in Timbuktu in an open pit mine, and all this dirty equipment, and I mean we're there for 14 days at a time. We sit in that equipment for 13 hours at a time. It's dusty, it's rainy, it's snowy. They got horrible conditions. Like, it's a tough job, right? Really tough. And I am the only one out of all the crews, as far as I know anyway, that leaves little handwritten notes with a little candy on the seats when I'm done. So, like, you're coming in on a day shift and the operator's been on night shift, the operator's coming in and he knows what to expect. He knows, like, oh my God, it's going to be a shit show. Like, this is going to be brutal and hard. Then he's all depressed. Then he climbs onto the equipment that I just left. And here I got on a little piece of napkin, I got a little happy face, and I'm like, I got a sun dancing, and I got shades, and then I'll have 2 or 3 little candies. Well, that person, all of a sudden, all that like, oh man, all of a sudden is out the window. I'm like, oh, she left me a note. Like, oh my God. It's almost like a message in a bottle, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times people have gotten on the radio, like, so when they get on the live radio, you're like 500 to 1,000 people listening. Hey, Kathy, thank you. You know what you did. It's that little thing that makes all the difference in the world.
It really is.
That little happy face.
And it's such a lost art. It really is.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about cursive, this is interesting. While we've been talking, I put in a query of learning cursive for adults. And something popped up for eBay, and there are like 20 different publications on a workbook for adults on cursive, because obviously no one's learning it. So, and there must be a market for it because they've got it for sale.
Wow. Yeah. And then people don't, that's the other thing, you don't use it. So even if you knew how to do it, that's a great point though, because we're not, it's not a skill that we use like where we used it before. Now we're not using it since we don't like letters, since we don't like write a lot of notes, since that's all, we can do all that via our phone or our computer. Yeah. And so that's fascinating. I didn't know there were workbooks. Now it makes me want to get one, but I don't know if that's necessary, but that's fascinating though.
So it shows that people want to do it, but they're not being prepped, obviously, in school to do it. So that tells me a lot of the kids coming up, and along with the Gen Zennials and so forth, who have not gotten the training perhaps in cursive, they have no idea how to go about writing a note It's going to be printed probably. And learning the art of cursive gives people a closer view into who you are, because it really does show more of a personality, I think, than just printing it.
Right. Right. It's next level for sure. And, in all the conversations I've had about letter writing, we have not specifically, I have not had the discussion about cursive writing. And now I'm going to go ruminate on that after our time together. I think I think you're right. It does show more personality. And frankly, it requires more effort as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Although I don't know, when I would take notes in class and so forth, I found that cursive was maybe quicker
Right.
because you're connecting things, you're connecting letters and all of that.
Flowing. Yeah. Maybe
Mhm.
it makes me want to write Dana in cursive, which I might do next, and see what that flows like as
Mhm.
opposed to printing. It's really an interesting. I'd love to hear what more people have to say about that. It's really an interesting
You want
topic.
to hear something somebody commented about that? When I hand wrote my book, I hand wrote it sitting in the truck at work, right? When it was raining, or when I had time. So I hand wrote it on a legal pad, because we're not allowed any electronics at work. And it took me a month. And then I came back, and then I never looked at that thing again. And then I just, typed it all up again. Well, it's interesting, because one of the very first books that I sold, a fellow came to see me after he had read it, and his first question to me, he says, "Kathy, did you handwrite this book?" And he had no idea, right? Because he just bought the book. And I'm like, "How did you know?" Like, he says, "Because there's a difference from people who," he said, "I could feel the flow in the words." And he says, when you write, it's a big difference from when you type. And
Interesting.
how could he pick that up?
That's super interesting.
That really
Right?
is.
I don't even know this guy.
I've never heard. Have you? Is that the only person who ever commented on that?
Yeah, that was the only person.
Huh.
Yeah, very, very intuitive. He asked me if I hand wrote the
Yeah.
book. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good.
That is good. Huh.
Well, when you think about it, when you're using a pencil or a pen, you're more connected to the paper where you're
Yeah.
creating your thoughts. If you have a keyboard in the middle, it's probably not as personal. And you could
Right.
always go back and hit delete.
Right.
Mhm.
Now he saw an intimacy in your writing that he didn't see in other people's, or maybe he'd read a book or writing from someone else who handwrote, and he saw something similar in yours that he didn't see in anybody else's.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Kathy DeCaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy DeCaro.
If you want to make a huge impact and reconnect with people in a real and authentic way, write a handwritten letter. If you want to really show your personality in your note, write it in cursive. As a society, we've gotten away from something that used to connect people across the globe. People would take the time to write their thoughts down and put their own personality into a note they sent to others. It's a lost art today, and something Amy Daughters believes we need to start doing to reconnect a very disconnected society. Digital correspondence and messaging is just plain impersonal, and people are feeling it. Amy is a keynote speaker, journalist, and author of Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. Amy's inspiring a lot of people with her ideas. And there are a lot of businesses and individuals who are starting to write notes, and it's making a difference. You know, it's kind of interesting, Amy, how different our communication really can be when we handwrite something. We think differently when we handwrite something. I know when I've looked back through some of the notes and some of the things that I wrote over the years from being a child to an adult, I could tell if I was in a bad mood just by the
Right.
handwriting, you know.
Right. No, it's interesting you say that, because when I wrote the book, Dear Dana, so I went back through all the letters and read most of them. And I kept a copy of everything, not intending to write a book. But when I had written Dana for those 6 to 8 months, I realized I wasn't going to remember what I said. And so I just made a copy of everything. So going back through the letters that I had written to people, reading those and then reading the replies over and over again, I could tell what kind of mood I was in when I wrote the letter. I could tell, like, if I didn't feel well. I could tell if I was having a trouble with my husband or my kids. You know, you could read that in your own writing. I was like, wow, it's like a snapshot of who I was 600 times when I wrote these letters, because they're all so different. So it is such a personal representation, of who we are.
It really is.
Mhm.
Now, Amy, you do a lot of keynote speaking. Do you go to businesses? Do you talk about reconnecting with handwriting? What all do you talk about?
Right. I tell my story and I talk about how we're in such a divided culture right now, because we are, we've created this great, or it's been created for us, or we've created this great divide, based on, instead of assuming, I feel like up until maybe 2016, we would look at each other and say, oh, I wonder what Kathy does. I wonder what her reality's like. I wonder what her life is like. And now it seems like we almost involuntarily look at each other and say, oh, I wonder who they voted for, or who they align themselves with, or and I'm not saying this is unilaterally, but I think we do that. And we've created this great divide that we stand on either side of.
Mhm.
And as I went through the process of writing these letters, I think, one of the absolute biggest takeaways was that if I reach out to you with nothing but goodwill on the line, because most of our communication is based in needing something, like promoting something or needing something. But if I reach out to you, because that's another thing people were blown away by. They're like, so what do you want? I don't really want anything. I'm just trying to write all these letters. And then you respond to me in the same way with nothing but goodwill on the line, that all of a sudden, all those things that separate us, politics, religion, cultural beliefs, so they still matter, absolutely. It just doesn't matter as much. They begin to dissipate. So my speaking is about using letter writing to help bridge that gap between two people, because I saw it happen over and over again. I wrote people who I knew absolutely didn't believe the same things I believed in, but then when I said, hey, thanks for helping me in high school, hey, thanks for your post, I think you're brave, I feel like I learned something, I feel like the world is better because we're different, and that's how the world changes. So basically meeting in the middle with someone and just seeing past the differences and adding personal value to them by remembering who they are in your story, all of a sudden we create the hope that we're looking for. And we don't have to have someone else do that for us. We can do it individually, one letter at a time. So I lay out a 3-step process on how to do that.
Okay.
That's what the speech is about.
That's awesome. When you think about it, handwriting letters, you're validating other people. And that's something we lack today.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is, not only do you matter, because we live in a world of conditional connections. Not only will I love you or like you if you agree with the things I agree to, or you fit into the box I want you to fit into. I'll only connect with you if we agree on these certain things that we're supposed to agree on. But when you step into when you step into unconditional connection, where you're saying, look, I'll listen to you, I'll connect with you, in this no man's land between the two sides, regardless of our differences, and you reach out across that, that chasm and grab the other person's hand, not only is that person you're connecting to being listened to, being cared about, regardless of what they think, being respected, you're going to get all that back. And that's not just something, that's literally everything in today's culture.
It really is. And people are taking the time to recognize someone else, which you don't feel like they're doing that in a text, um, in something that's on social media. They're actually sitting down, taking the time and communicating and reaching out across the miles to somebody else.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
across the divide. And,
Yeah.
I was, whenever I started these letters, I think it was 2015. So, 8 years ago, I was a girl who hadn't written a letter in 30 years. 8 years later, hundreds and hundreds of letters, 600 plus, the replies, plus the letters to Dana. I'll tell you what, I am on a mission. Yes, I want to sell my book. Yes, I want to go speak to people, but this is the lowest investment with the biggest return we can do in human connection. It is so powerful that I will stand anywhere. I will take a call. I will get on a podcast. I will do anything to talk about it because it is so legitimately easy yet powerful that it could literally change the world.
You know what? My sister is in Timbuktu, Nunavut, over up by Greenland. She's managing a store up there, and she's lonely and stuff. You just inspired me. I'm gonna handwrite her a letter right tonight and send it up there.
Amen.
It'll be along with like a Los Angeles sweatshirt because she's probably freezing. But I'm gonna handwrite her not just a card. I'm gonna write her a letter. Hey sis, because she's lonely and depressed, and it's hard up there.
Right.
So thank you very much. You just inspired
Yeah.
me to do that. I'm going to do that.
You just made my whole day, Kathy.
Yeah.
And I'll share that with Dana. And you just made
That's
her
happening.
whole day too. And I would challenge anyone listening, and it could be 4 lines in a note,
Yeah.
or a card or a postcard. But I challenge everybody out there to write one letter and just sit back and think, who is this person to me? What are some things we have in common? If they have a Facebook profile, go and look at them as an individual. And I guarantee you, if you think, what is this person's reality like? Like, who cares what they believe in? Who cares how they voted? And then think, who are they to me? You will absolutely know what to say. And there are, in the number one rule in letter and note writing, the absolute number one rule is there are no rules. You cannot get it wrong. You cannot get it wrong. Just the act of sitting down and doing it, the act about caring about another person, the act of wanting to connect with them, that is everything. This is something that none of us can mess up if we do it in our own way and do what our heart tells us to do.
You're bridging the gap between people and you're combating the loneliness that a lot of people are having today. This is terrific. Now, you have a place where people can find your books. You have a website, correct, Amy?
Yes, ma'am. It's amydaughters.com. And there's links to my books. My email address is there, a form you can connect with me. I'd love to connect with anyone and talk about this further. But yeah, you can absolutely buy the books there as well.
I think this would make a huge difference if they had a program in school, with children. Academics, they've lost sight of how important all of this really is.
Can you imagine if there was a program where kids could write to elders and seniors homes?
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah.
Right? Even assisted living,
I like that, Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a great program.
No, that would be. And, and Dana, my pen pal, she's a school teacher, and all throughout the time we've been pen paling, she's made her kids write letters. And she said, when she started her career, pen paling, she's a 4th grade reading and English teacher. Pen paling was a part of the program, and of course, like with cursive writing and handwriting and everything else, that's all slipped away. But her and her teacher friends, and I know that's a small amount of people, but if we know teacher friends, we can encourage them too to get their kids to write letters. And I know it's kind of changed the trajectory of some of what the kids have done, and in those circles.
All of it's so important, and it's going to be so much more personal. I've gotten thank you notes for like wedding gifts and stuff, and they're like a postcard, a generic card you send to everyone. It's like, you want to hear from that person,
Yeah.
And if we rekindle this tradition, it's going to change the trajectory, I think, of humanity. This would be very cool.
I think it will, and I saw it in my own circle, my own group, which is so relatable because if anyone, like any one of us on this call would have, like Kathy, if you would have written the letters, Shelley, if you would have written the letters, it would have been the same kind of result, because it's so relatable, because we all have these subsets of friends we met from different places, and that's why this is available to everyone, and people will feel like they matter, and that changes things.
That's right. And if you don't have fancy stationery, put it on a grocery bag. Nobody cares. They're getting a note, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love what Shelley said
Brown
about
paper bag. Yeah.
Right.
I love
Sorry.
I love what you said about the napkins. And you know what? You don't have to, I mean, the mailing thing is great, because the surprise of getting something in a mailbox, just think about the thrill you're going to give people when they go out to the mailbox. They're going to lose their absolute minds. I can guarantee you're going to just make someone's year. But you can also leave the note on the seat, put it on the cubicle at work, drop it in the neighbor's mailbox. It doesn't, and the thing is, you can do it your own way. You don't have to do it 600 times. That's ridiculous.
Like I do it at work, right? I leave it on the seat of the equipment.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it is. Because it goes back to your wall, Kathy. Let's fill up these people's walls, their love walls. Let's fill them. I'm going to use that again, and I hope you'll forgive me.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Because it's beautiful, because that's what we're doing. It's like this wall of hope, and we have the power to have somebody pin that up, and it takes about 67 cents and about 15 minutes of your time, and it will blow you away what you can do with this.
That's so cool. What's your website again, Amy?
It's amydaughters.com.
Daughters like daughters.
Yeah, like you had two little girls, they'd be your daughters. That's what my father-in-law always said.
Okay. This is so cool. I love what you're doing.
Me too. Thank you very much for inspiring me. And my sister will be grateful too.
Y'all have inspired me, and y'all are out there doing it every day. And I think what y'all are doing, hopefully you feel like it's a ripple effect, but it may be more like a tidal wave, this empowering of women and sharing people's stories. And I'm humbled to be a part of it. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Yes, we hope to make a huge difference for women, no doubt about it. And thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me and let me share my story.
This is terrific. We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.